Yeshua is coming back again. Yeshua is coming back again. Yeshua is coming. Yeshua is coming. Yeshua is coming back again. He will come back to save his own. Yes, he will come back to save his own. He will come back to save. He will come back to save. He will come back to save his own. So now let us all worship him in love. Let us all worship him in love. Let us all worship him. Let us all worship him. Let us all worship him in love. Sing hallelujah to the Lord. Sing hallelujah to the Lord. Sing hallelujah. Sing hallelujah. Sing hallelujah to the Lord. Beautiful. Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
Good evening, Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
Boy, the ship looks like it's listing to this side. I sure hope that some of the people, oh good, more people on this side. And in the middle, you're fine. Don't want the ship to list. You have to be careful when you say that phrase. I don't want the ship to list. A listing ship is not good. Anyway, welcome to Shabbat services here at Congregation Or Chadash. I have to look through all these pieces of paper, like you do too. Let me give you, first of all, do you want the good news or the good news? Okay, so the good news is this week, our air conditioning got totally fixed. And here's the other good news that you'll really appreciate. That system also provides the heat. So now you're really happy that we have heat tonight. That's good. Go ahead, keep up with me. Try to keep up with me. Yeah. All right, here are various things in no apparent order. The seminary started its classes this week. For my class, welcome, and you're still welcome to come. For my class, on Tuesday night, we will not have class. But on Thursday night, you will have class with my husband. Please, just a little side note. Never assume that my travel schedule and my husband's travel schedule have whatsoever anything to do with each other. Just don't assume that. Like, every time he's gone, I'll be gone. Every time he's here, no. Maybe not. So, I'm just saying, John will be at his class Thursday night, but I will not have class Thursday night. I also want to tell you that the little elves have made a sign to go on that door right there. Remember, in the middle of this sheet, it says door instructions. Remember, we discussed this at length last week. And we urged you that if you go out this door after people have left the sanctuary, you need to make sure it locks. And so there's even a little taped up sign on the door to assist you. If you still cannot figure out how to have the door lock behind you, then see me or about 15 other people, and we will try to not ridicule you and just help you to do it yourself. Okay, what else? Synagogue work day, Sunday, February 17th at 10 a.m. There's various tasks to do. I mean, we can have you plow the lower 40 over here, but probably not this time. That was a joke having to do with farming in our lower 40, which we don't have. Okay, not a farming community. But anyway, there's a lot of stuff. You know, it's like your house. Oh, you got this chore, you got that chore, you got this chore. We'll multiply that by about 30, and that's what we have here at the synagogue. And a nice sort of, I wouldn't call it a bribe. I would call it more a thank you for coming and participating would be grilling hot dogs and hamburgers outside. Now, please do not show up and not work and expect you're going to get hamburgers and hot dogs, because people will notice. So, you got to work to get the hamburgers and hot dogs. Fair enough? Fair enough. All right. Now, the biggest thing that you may or may not have been thinking about is the Hebrew blast-off. So I'll let you read this on your own. The important things about this sheet that you should know now is the dates have been set. The dates are Saturday, February 23rd, and Sunday, February 24th, in the afternoon only. So it's going to be 2 to 5:30. Sometimes I let you go early, depending on how I look at the audience and see if their eyes are twirling. And so then I would let you go a little earlier. You can read that. You will need to pay. You'll notice that's also at the bottom. That should have been in the box. I'm just saying. I cannot lay out information, so. The cost is $25. $25 does not go to me. It goes because there's stuff. There's stuff. There's printouts. There's food. There's snacks. There's all sorts of things. And then the $15 is for the Hebrew Blast-Off book itself. The Hebrew Blast-Off book, I'd say, is about 90 pages. So it is worth money. If you have a prior version, if you took this from me 10 years ago or 15 years ago, then you might not have the updated version, which has a few corrections in it. So you might want to look into that. Otherwise, you're free to borrow somebody else's if you're willing to ride with the corrections. All right, so how do I sign up? You are saying, well, you either put your cash in an envelope and leave it on Matt's desk, and write on the envelope, because we're not minders, Hebrew, blast-off, Hebrew blast-off, H blast-off, Hebrew B, whatever you want. But if it's cash, put it on Matt's desk in an envelope. Check, make out to Menorah Ministries. Menorah like menorah, and ministries like ministries. Attendance does have to be for both days. Day 2 builds on what we learned in day 1 and vice versa. So please make sure that you can be there both days. It's not like you have a choice. You have to come both days. Any questions about the Hebrew part of it, please ask me. Any questions about how you pay, what you do, how you can ask Matt. Okay? All right. Well, I think I'm done. That was hard work. Once again, we paid off our air conditioning / heating system. Yay! That required paying them money. So, Blue Box needs money now, but we did take care of something that was really weighing over our heads as a group the end of last summer. And so we're very thankful that God has provided then for air conditioning. We're very grateful that God has provided now for heat. Even if it's just a few nights each year, we need heat. We need heat sometimes. And so we thank you, the congregation, for all you've done so far. You've been very faithful in giving, and we look forward to enjoying the other fruits of our giving in the very near future. Thanks for coming tonight. Shabbat Shalom.
As we begin our services together, join Jenny and me in standing, facing the doors in the back, as we quite literally, welcome Shabbat in the traditional fashion. The respect that we have for Shabbat is much like the respect we would have for someone of royal descent. So we call her a queen. And Shabbat should act like a queen in our lives because of the wonderful opportunity we have to have this day set aside. Oh, and it also obviously looks forward to a time in the future when it will be permanent Shabbat. It's the time of the Messianic age, and so you will see, or you will listen to some Messianic imagery as we respond. Jenny leads, and we respond on pages 14 to 25.
Shamor v'zechor b'dibur echad, Yishmianu el hamyuchad. Adonai echad u'shamo echad, L'shem ol tifaret v'litila. Lecha dodi, lecha dodi likrat kala, Hanei Shabbat Shabbat lechu v'nelcha, Ki mikor ha'bracha, Me'rosh mikadem nesucha, Sof ma'aseh b'machshav tchila. Lecha dodi, lecha dodi likrat kala, V'nei Shabbat nekavela. Lecha dodi likrat kala, V'nei Shabbat nekavela. Hina ari me'afar kumi, Livshei bigdei tifartechami, Al yad ben Yishai bet halachmi, Harva el nafshi ge'ala. Lecha dodi, lecha dodi likrat kala, V'nei Shabbat nekavela. Lecha dodi likrat kala, V'nei Shabbat nekavela. Hi torari, Kiva urekumi uri, uri shir deberi, Kevod Adonai ala yiknikla. Lecha dodi, lecha dodi likrat kala, V'nei Shabbat nekavela. Lecha dodi likrat kala, V'nei Shabbat nekavela. Boi v'shalom al teret bala, Gam b'simcha u'tzahala, Toch emunei am segula, Boi chala. Lecha dodi, lecha dodi likrat kala, V'nei Shabbat nekavela. Lecha dodi likrat kala, V'nei Shabbat Come, my friend, meet the bride. Let's welcome the presence of the Sabbath. Observe and remember, in a single statement, the unique God caused us to hear his command. He alone is Lord, and his name is unique to his fame and splendor and praise. Together, come, my friend, meet the bride. Let's welcome the presence of the Sabbath. Let's go to meet the Sabbath, for she is the source of blessing from the beginning, anointed from ancient days, though made last, conceived first. Come, my friend, meet the bride. Let's welcome the presence of the Sabbath. Shake the dust off yourself, rise. Dress in garments of glory, my people. Jesse's son, the Bethlehemite, draws near, bringing us redemption. Come, my friend, meet the bride. Let's welcome the presence of the Sabbath. Wake up, your light is come. Arise, shine, awake, awake. Sing a grand song. The glory of God is revealed to you. Come, my friend, meet the bride. Let's welcome the presence of the Sabbath. Come in peace, crown of your Lord. Come with joy and with cheer. Come to the faithful among the chosen people. Come, bride, come. Come, my friend, meet the bride. Let's welcome the presence of the Sabbath.
You may be seated. How do we know that Jesse's son, the Bethlehemite, will draw near, bringing us redemption, or that his light, our light, has come? We know because Shabbat stands as the sign, the guarantee that what God promised, he's committed himself to, and when God promised to be our God and make us his people, it was a permanent promise he made. And he said Shabbat is a sign, the guarantee of that. So that becomes our response, taken directly from Exodus 31, 16, and 17, Beshamru, pages 8 to 11.
V'shamru b'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat la'asot et ha-Shabbat dorotam b'rid olam beini u'bein b'nei Yisrael oti le'olam ki sheshet yamin asa Adonai et hashamayim ve'et haaretz uvayom hashvi Shabbat vayinafash. Together, the children of Israel shall keep the Sabbath, observing the Sabbath throughout their generations as an everlasting covenant. It is a sign between me and the children of Israel forever, that in 6 days the Lord made the heavens and the earth, and on the seventh day he ceased from work and rested.
Remember that.
We recall that now as we light the Shabbat lights this evening and look forward to the time of eternal Shabbat, when all will be culminated.
How very timely. Just flew in. Your arms are so tired.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddushanu b'mitzvoto v'tzivanu le'hadlik ner shel Shabbat. Blessed are you, O Lord our God, King of the universe, who has set us apart by your commandments and commanded us to light the candles for the Sabbath. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddushanu b'mitzvoto v'tzivanu le'hadlik goyim v'netananu Yeshua Meshikenu ha'olam. Blessed are you, O Lord, our God, ruler of the universe, who sanctified us by your commandments and commanded us to be a light for the nations and gave us Yeshua, our Messiah, the light of the world. Shabbat Shalom.
Shalom.
Our Tehillat Habrit Kadashah portion on the bottom of pages 136 and 137 reminds us that, as L'Chadodi indicated, our light has come, and in fulfillment of the prayers down through the years that we have offered in synagogues around the world, we realize that God has come and has redeemed his people, having raised up a horn of salvation for us in the house of his servant David. I'll lead you through that part of it in Hebrew. I ask that you respond with the entirety of the English as we make this our response to God for all that he's done for us. Baruch Adonai Elohei Yisrael, Tipakat et Amo, Vaishlach lo Pedut, Vayarem lanu Keren Yeshua B'Veit David Avdo. Together.
Praise be to the Lord, the God of Israel, because he has come and has redeemed his people. He has raised up a horn of salvation for us in the house of his servant David, as he said through his holy prophets of long ago. Salvation from our enemies and from the hand of all who hate us, to show mercy to our fathers and to remember his holy covenant. The oath he swore to our father Abraham, to rescue us from the hands of our enemies and to enable us to serve him without fear, in holiness and righteousness before him all our days.
The one who is the horn of salvation from the house of God's servant David is the one who now sits enthroned in the heavenly realms to guarantee our destiny permanently. We respond now to that reality as we enter that throne room scene on pages 40 and 41, and now we respond.
Elohim asher diber, mikadem pamim rabot, uvidrachim rabot el havot beyad haneviim. Diber aleinu behacharit hayamim ha'ele, beyad habein asher Song leo reish kol, yado, ramasa et haolamim, uzohar kevodo, leselem asmuto, venosei kol bivaro, rav hagvura, In the past, God spoke to our fathers through the prophets at many times in various ways. But now, in the end of days, he has spoken to us by the Messiah, his Son, whom he appointed the heir of all things, and through whom he made the universe. The Son is the full radiance of God's glory, and the flawless manifestation of his reality. He sustains all things by his powerful word. After he made atonement for sins, he sat down in the place of authority, beside the majesty in heaven. True and firm, established and lasting, right and faithful, loved and treasured, desired and pleasant, feared and mighty, ordered and acceptable, good and beautiful is this word to us forever and ever.
Sitting in the place of authority beside a majesty in heaven, a picture envisioned even by our great sages of old, the rabbis of the classical period of Judaism and earlier. Seating there, he anticipates the time when he returns, an anticipation which we share as well as we now respond on pages 156 and 157 of Sephardi Kaddish.
יתגדל יתקדש שמי רבה, והעומד יברח חירותי, וימלך מלכותי, ויצמח פורקני, ויקרב משיחי. בחיי חונו ומיכונו, בחיי לכל בית ישראל, ויגלו בזמן קריב אמרו אמן. יהי שמי רב המנורה, לעולם לעולמיה יתברך. יהי שמי רב המברך, לעולם לעולמיה יתברך. וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא, ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל, שמי לקודש הבריחו. להילה מן כל ברכתה, וישרתה תושבחתה ונחמתה, דמירן בעלמה ואמרו אמן. יהי שלום הרב אמין שמיה, וחיים טובים עלינו, ועל כל ישראל ואמרו אמן. עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו, ועל כל ישראל ואמרו אמן. Glorified and sanctified be his great name in the world, which is created according to his will. May he bring about the reign of his kingdom and cause his salvation to sprout and bring near his Messiah in your lifetime and in your days and in the life of all the house of Israel, speedily, yes, soon, and let us say,
Amen.
May his great name be blessed forever and forever, eternally. Blessed and praised, glorified and exalted, extolled and honored, adored and lauded be the name of the Holy One,
Blessed be he
who is high above, far above all blessings and hymns, and praises and consolations which are spoken in the world, and say, Amen. May there be great peace from heaven, and good life for us and for all Israel, and say,
Amen.
He who makes peace in the heavenly realms, may he make peace for us and for all Israel, and let us say,
Amen.
Would you please now join us in standing facing Jerusalem, the direction of the ark, for our Amida portions this evening, which are paragraphs 1 through 3. Even though we have acknowledged that he is high above all the blessings and praises and hymns that we offer to him, nevertheless we continue to offer them to him as part of these paragraphs of the Amidah. So utilize these words to express your gratitude in response to our great God. Paragraphs 1 through 3, pages 66 to 71. Mikamoka, Al Gevurot. Who is like you, O Lord of might? In fact, who can be compared to you, O King? Which is why we sanctify your name in the world as they sanctify it in the highest heavens. Bible, page 69. As it is written by your prophet, they call out to each other, and they say,
Holy, holy, holy is the Lord of hosts. All the earth is full of his splendor. Kadosh, 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 Adonai Tzavaot Melech kol haaretz kevodo.
and across from them comes back this resounding response.
Praise, praise, be the splendor of the Lord everywhere it is manifest. Baruch kavod Adonai, min kamo.
And then in the Holy Writings we are told,
The Lord shall reign forever, your God, O Zion, for all generations. Yimlok Adonai leolam, Elohai Tzion, lador vador, hallelujah.
so in every generation we will tell of your greatness. In every age we will proclaim your holiness. Your praise will certainly never depart from our lips, for you are a great and holy God and King. Baruch atah Adonai El HaKadosh. Blessed are you, O Lord, you are the holy God. You may be seated. If we have truly taken in the words that we have responded with, that we have spoken, then we will continue to praise him as we raise the question, Mikamoka, who is like you, O Lord among the gods, your glorious and holiness, awesome in praises, doing wonders. It's the song from the sea that was part of the Parsha from last week. And so, on page 44 and 45, we read, Praise our exalted God. Blessed is he who is to be blessed. Moses and the people of Israel sang this song too with great joy. And we joined them now as they all said, so we now all say, Who is like you,
O Lord among the gods? Who is like you, glorious in holiness, awesome in praises, doing wonders? Mi chamocha ba'elim Adonai, mi chamocha nedar b'kodesh, no ra tehilot osei
Mi kamoka ba'elim Adonai, mi kamoka nedar b'kodesh, no ra tehilot osei
Having raised the question, we now answer that question on pages 88 and 89. Truly, there is none like you, O Lord, among the gods.
Ein chamocha Elohim Adonai, v'ein k'maasecha. Malchutcha malchut kol olamim, u'memshelcha b'kol dor. Mekol ador vador. Adonai melech, Adonai malach, Adonai imelok leolam vaed. Adonai oz le'amo yitin. Adonai yivarech et amo b'shalom. There is none like you among the gods, my Lord, and there is nothing that compares to your deeds. Your kingdom is a kingdom that endures for all eternity, and your sovereignty extends throughout all generations. The Lord reigns, the Lord has reigned, the Lord shall reign throughout eternity. The Lord will bless his people with peace.
If we really believe what we have just exclaimed, then we will in fact affirm that he is king over our lives as well. We do that through the Shema, pages 34 to 39, as we rise, facing Jerusalem yet again, and we make this our commitment to him. You are my king, forever and fully.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Baruch Shem, Kevod Malchuto, Le'olam Vayed. Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha, B'kol levacha, U'kol nafshecha, U'kol me'odecha. Ve'hayu advarim ha'eleh, Asher Elohim etzavcha hayom alevecha. Ve'shinantam levanecha, ve'dibarta bam, ve'shivtecha bebetecha, u'vadkecha b'derech, u'shaktecha u'chomecha, u'shartam le'ot al yadecha, ve'hayot tavot bein einecha, u'ktavtam al mizot beitecha, u'visharecha. Hear, O Israel, the Lord is our God, the Lord alone.
Blessed be he whose glorious kingdom is eternal.
Love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your life, and with all your strength. These commandments that I give you today are to be on your hearts. Impress them on your children. Talk about them when you sit at home and when you walk along the road, when you lie down and when you get up. Tie them as reminders on your hands and bind them on your foreheads. Write them on the door frames of your houses
and on your gates.
The reality that we affirm is a reality that will in fact be accomplished throughout the world as we turn to pages 88 and 89, and we reflect and look forward to that time with Vayig and Soah, the time when the Torah will go forth from Zion, the word of the Lord out of Jerusalem, as it now, in a moment, will go forth among us yet again.
Vayehi ben Zoharon, Vayomer Moshe, Kom Adonai, Vayafu Toracha, Ve'anusu mizanecha, mipanecha. Ki Zion tetzei Torah, Ki Zion tetzei Torah, U'davar Adonai b'Yerushalayim. Baruch Shenatan Torah, Torah. Baruch Shenatan Torah, Torah. Le'amo Yisrael b'kedushato. And it came to pass, whenever the ark went forward, Moses would say, Arise, O Lord, and let your enemies be scattered. May those who hate you flee from before you. For from Zion shall go forth the Torah, and the word of the Lord out of Jerusalem. Blessed be he who in holiness gave the Torah
to his people Israel.
He gave us a tremendous treasure. It's a gift to which we now respond on page 133.
The ark now unveils its treasure.
To our eyes and minds and hearts,
Inside, the scroll of Torah stands.
it stands there with all its richness and wisdom.
As we listen, voices speak, voices of our ancestors.
Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, Joseph, and Moses.
O God, they bring us your instructions for us.
Sarah,
Rebecca, Rachel, and Leah, and Miriam speak to us as well.
O God, they move us to respond to your promises to us.
We are grateful for your words, the words of Torah.
Hear, O Israel, the Lord calls.
We will hear your words that we may learn them, love them,
live them.
What does the Lord require of you? To fear him, love him, serve him, and walk in all his ways.
All the Lord has said, we will do.
Mi shivarach Avotenu Avraham Yitzchak veYaakov. He who blessed our fathers Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. May he bless Matthew. May he bless Rabbi John. May he bless Rabbi Patrice. And may he bless Lisa, who have come up to honor God and the Torah. May the Holy One bless them and their families, and send blessing and prosperity on all the work of their hands. Baruch hu et Adonai HaMavorach.
Baruch Adonai Habarak Le'olam Va'ed.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim, v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten ha'Torah.
Amen.
Bless the Lord who is blessed. Bless the Lord who is blessed forever and ever. Blessed are you, Lord our God, ruler of the universe, who chose us from all peoples and gave to us the Torah. Blessed are you, Lord, giver of the Torah.
Thanks, Jenny. I forgot a mic. Okay. Vayishma Yitro Kohen Midyan Koten Moshe Et Kol Asher Asa Elohim LaMoshe ULYisrael Amo Ki Hotzi Adonai Et Yisrael MiMitzrayim. Please be seated. Jethro, the priest of Midian, and Moses' father-in-law, heard all the things that God had done for Moses and for Israel, his people, and how Adonai brought Israel out of Egypt. This struck me as a funny thought. Hotzi mi Mitzrayim. I wonder if the children of Israel sang it to Jethro. Hotzi anu mi Mitzrayim. This passage has to do with the delegation of powers, because Moses meets with Jethro, and Jethro sees, wow, you're handling all the cases yourself. Anytime anyone has a dispute, it's like the Supreme Court of our country hearing every case ever. And he says, you need to let other people handle this stuff. And it's a really important lesson, because it doesn't just get Moses and other leaders out of work, which, I mean, that's a good reason by itself. But it also raises up the people who are given responsibility. They don't just know the Torah for themselves. They now have a responsibility to adjudicate disputes according to the laws of Torah. And they have a responsibility and some prestige and honor for their work. And that is fantastic. It made me think of the delegation of responsibilities here in the synagogue. And even hidden talents get brought out when people take responsibilities. I used to draw a lot more when I was a kid, and now I still have really good talent for like a 10-year-old because I didn't keep going. But the artistic nature that I have is not reflected in drawing, which I'm not very good at, but you know, I try to make the bulletins and inserts look nice. And if what I'm saying is that talent is not good enough to earn me money in a professional sense, without the ability to express it here when I give it to the congregation of that talent, it probably would not be expressed and just would be in the background. It would be a talent that's not used. There is a lady in our congregation who is has a very thorough musical pedigree, and noticed the singing voice of another person in our congregation. And she'll tell you all about her musical pedigree. She'll tell you all about it. She's real sweet. But she noticed the beautiful singing voice of someone in our congregation, and that's our newest cantor. We also have had additions to our Council of Elders, the Zakanim. We have had one addition there. And we've had 2 additions to our Shamashim. And I won't tell you who they are, but it's one of, sorry, I keep looking down. Anyway, it's one of my favorite responsibilities to add names right here. It shows the devotion that people have to God and to this community. And we see the handiwork of such persons, both literally in the things that are right in front of me, the decorations, the chuppah, even the hooking up of the electricity. We walk into the beautification of this community, and not just for us, but for God, thanks to their gifts. And we figuratively walk into again, figuratively building through the fiscal responsibility of our finance committee over decades. All of these things add up. God sees the talents that we nurture and that we give to him, to this community. And I think that's reflected in this passage. So we should spend time studying, find out what we're good at, and volunteering, because it raises us up and it benefits the community, and God receives it as worship. And I think that that's fantastic, especially when you consider without the synagogue, at least in my life, these talents would not go to use, but God reaches them to the surface in us and helps us polish them, and that we get to give them to our community and to God. I think that's fantastic. So best of luck in your Torah studies and in your professional lives. I wish all of you health and well-being, and Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
I'll be reading from Exodus 19:16 through 20. On the morning of the 3rd day, there was thunder, lightning, and a thick cloud on the mountain. Then a shofar blast sounded so loudly that all the people in the camp trembled. Moses brought the people out of the camp to meet God. They stood near the base of the mountain. Mount Sinai was enveloped in smoke because Adonai descended onto it in a fire. Its smoke went up like a smoke from a furnace, and the whole mountain shook violently. As the sound of the shofar grew louder and louder, Moses spoke, and God answered him with a voice. Adonai came down onto Mount Sinai to the top of the mountain. Then Adonai called Moses to the top of the mountain, and Moshe went up.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lanu Torat emet, v'chayei olam letabatochenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah. Blessed are you, Lord our God, ruler of the universe, who gave us the Torah of truth and life everlasting, planted in our midst. Blessed are you, Lord, giver of the Torah.
You just heard read from the Parsha for tonight, the scene when God showed up at the mountain. Quite the scene. And the people, Moses went up and the people stood down at the base of the mountain. And as they stood there and they received these very words from God, so now we stand. And I do mean we stand up. as if we're standing at that mountain, receiving those very words, because we are receiving those very words as we respond with the Zod HaTorah. Pages 98 and 99. If you need a transliteration, you find that on page 95.
Zod HaTorah asher sam Moshe lifnei bnei Yisrael al-pi Adonai beyad Moshe. This is the Torah which Moses placed before the children of Israel. It is in accord with the Lord's command by the hand of Moses.
You may be seated. There's a special Brit Chadashah reading for this particular week. And so we have the Brit Chadashah blessings found on pages 96 to 99.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Mashiach Yeshua v'hadavarim shel barit hachadashah. Baruch atah Adonai noten barit hachadashah. Amen. Blessed are you, O Lord our God, ruler of the universe, who has given us Messiah Yeshua in the words of the renewed covenant. Blessed are you, O Lord, giver of the renewed covenant.
I'm reading from the Gospel of Yochanan, chapter 1. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. He was with God in the beginning. All things came to be through him, and without him nothing made had being. In him was life, and the life was the light of mankind. The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not suppressed it. The Word became a human being and lived with us, and we saw his Shekinah, the Shekinah full of the Father's only Son, full of grace and truth. No one has ever seen God, but the only and unique Son, who is identical with God and is at the Father's side, he has made him known.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu davar emet v'chayei olam natav b'tocheinu. Baruch atah Adonai noten barit hachadashah. Blessed are you, O Lord our God, ruler of the universe, who gave us the word of truth and planted among us life eternal. Blessed are you, O Lord, giver of the renewed covenant.
These words that we've heard that have echoed down through the ages, down through the centuries, are intended to impact lives. And we recognize that, we receive that reality as we now respond. With Etz Chaim, tree of life, renew our days as of old, is that response. In the heart of that, as we now join on those pages 96 and 97 for that response.
Etz Chaim lama kazikim ba letomcheha meushar teracheha darkei noam vekol nativoteha shalom. Hashirenu Adonai elecha v'nashuva A tree of life it is to those who take hold of it, and happy are those who support it. Its ways are ways of pleasantness, and all its paths are peace. Turn us, Lord, to you, and let us return. Renew our days as of old.
Earlier on in the Parsha for this evening, we were reminded that we were going to become a kingdom of priests. Properly equipped, now we stand as his priests before him, and we respond. On pages 98 and 99, with Uznu Ko Yomar, we express our gratitude and our commitment.
Uvnu Chol Yomar Shuva Adonai Rivavot Alfei Yisrael. When the ark rested, Moses would say, Return, O Lord, to the myriads of Israel's families. Arise, O Lord, to your resting place, you and your mighty ark. Clothe your priests with righteousness. May those who have experienced your faithful love shout for joy. For the sake of your servant David, don't delay the return of your Messiah. Va'avor David Abdecha, al teshev penei mishachecha. Ki lekach tov natati lachem, torati al ta'azovu. I give you good instruction. Do not forsake my Torah.
Now, as we greet one another up here, you get to greet one another down there.
Hi, Daddy. Oh, no. He missed the bus.
Good thing I'm a great thing. Hey, Don. Hey. Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
You're so sweet. We just love that we started greeting down in the aisles.
Okay. Enough with the hubbub.
Now we can hug everybody.
Okay, now I'm done.
Now you're done? Okay. Gary's given us permission to continue. Now, this past weekend was Tu B'Shvat. For those of you who weren't here last Friday or at the retreat over the weekend, you might be saying, what? Did you say something about some kind of tu? No, I said Tu B'Shvat. Tu B'Shvat. It literally means, don't say it too fast, you do what I just did. It literally means the 15th of Shabbat, the month we're in. And it is the new year for the trees. Now please remember, in traditional or classic Judaism, we have literally a whole handful of New Years. I've told you before, in fact, probably many times, that we as Jewish people just love to celebrate holidays. So the more, the merrier. And apparently we have a bunch of New Years as well. And on this New Year, Tu B'Shvat, the New Year for trees, in Israel it's customary to plant trees. And appropriately so. Now, the festival arose from the need to designate a particular day in the year which would mark the beginning of a new year for the fruit crop. Now, this was done for tithing purposes. It was necessary so that the farmers would have a fixed date after which all food which was grown, all fruit that was grown, would be included in his calculations for the tithing in the new year, while fruit produced before that date would be subject to the tithing for the old year. And by this time in ancient Israel, the heavy rains of late winter were almost over. The earth had its much needed rain. The cold had gone, warmth was setting in, and it was a good time to plant fruit trees. Interestingly enough, it should remind us of the opening chapters of the book of Genesis, which is the very first new year, if you would have it, the beginning, the original beginning. And note that throughout you've got a recurrence of mention of trees and fruit in these texts. Also, it's a good picture of the very beginning of life itself, since it is the new year for trees. So, to Beshvat, and for their produce. So, it was a good time for the planting of trees. In other words, for what we would see as the start of new life. And so appropriately it was read in Yochanan's gospel, in him was life. Now you might be saying, you should be saying, whoa, slow down there, Rabbi. How did you get there so fast? Well, that's a bit of a winding path. I'm going to ask that you join with me in that winding path this evening. So follow close behind. To begin our story, we learn that in the ancient synagogue, the Targum, the Aramaic paraphrase of the scripture, was provided along with the Hebrew scripture readings. By means of the Targums, therefore, the rabbinic interpretations of scripture could be introduced without altering in any way the text of the Hebrew original. Now, this tradition of an Aramaic interpretation may go back all the way into the Persian era. And in case you've forgotten the Persian era, that's a good thing. You shouldn't remember back that far. Mm-hmm. It's about 500 and some years before Yeshua. It was a time when Aramaic was the language of the entire empire. And yet, in the first century, the time of Yeshua, it still provided help for what we would call God-fearers, people whom we would call God-fearers. I don't have time to go into that. For that, you've got to pick up a copy of what's called the Enduring Paradox and read the chapter on God-fearers. It was written by Patrice. And then you get the story. But anyhow, in the first century, in the Second Temple period, Aramaic still provided help for God-fearers or for those from outside the land of Israel who might not have known Hebrew quite so well. As it turns out, the Targums shed light on some significant passages in what's often called the Gospel of John, the text written by Yochanan, as read to us. They provide some insight into a number of Jewish allusions found within this first chapter, part of which was read. You see, one of the phenomena in the Targums is the regular use of certain phrases which elevate God in his utter holiness far above his creation, much like was emphasized for us in the third paragraph of the Amidah tonight, which is taken from our Haftarah passage, Isaiah chapter 6. An example of this is Genesis 1:27, a verse you might be familiar with. The Hebrew text reads this way, "And God created the human in his image." The Aramaic translation goes like this, "And the word," Aramaic term memra, "the word of the Lord created the human in his image." Now something similar happens in Genesis 1:3-5, again words that are very familiar to you, which in the Targums read, "And the word of the Lord said, let there be light. Then there was light according to the decision of his word. And the word of the Lord divided between the light and the darkness. And the word of the Lord called the light day, and the darkness he called night." So throughout the creation account, the Targum frequently substitutes the word, or the memra of the Lord, for God. Apparently, the repetition of God said in the Hebrew text was taken to imply that God spoke literally by means of his word, and things happened, and life began. Now, two other favorite words for God in the Targumic tradition are ikar and its variant yekar, not your car, but yekar, and also a term with which you might be familiar, Shekhinah, often pronounced Shekinah or mispronounced Shekinah. Therefore, the Hebrew text of the Parsha for next week, Exodus 24, verse 10, "And they saw the God of Israel," and that is rendered by the Targum as they saw the glory, the Yekar of the God of Israel. The Hebrew of Exodus 25, in verse 8, which comes in the Parshat 2 weeks down the road. The Hebrew there, and I will dwell among them, is rendered by the Targum as, and I will put my Shekinah among them. Now, this Targumic background becomes particularly meaningful in the text that was read from the first chapter of Yochanan's Gospel. The linking of God's Word with the opening verses of Genesis and with creation is something that had made its way into the written Targumic tradition, as we have already seen. After all, the first creative act in Genesis is, and God said. That is, in fact, an act of using words. Now, the Targumist, by rendering this, and the word of the Lord said, the Targumist did not in any way understand this in a typical Christian sense as defining an entity or a person within God. In the Jewish context, it was simply a way of talking about God more reverently. Although, in all honesty, it did begin to take on this term, and this approach did begin to take on a separate identity, and a supernatural one at that, in the late Second Temple period. So, John made the same literary connection between Genesis 1:1 and God's Word when he began his gospel. Now, it can certainly be assumed that at the time of Yochanan's gospel, at the time that it was written, informed readers would have all seen the connection between the opening phrase found in John's gospel, which literally reads, Ein Arche. That's the Greek for Bereshit, or beginning. They would have seen the connection between that phrase and the Greek translation of Genesis 1:1, which reads exactly the same way as it translates Bereshit, bara. But the shock and the beauty of his images really come into focus in verse 14, which reads, and the Word, memra, became flesh, or human, and dwelt among us, took up his residence among us. It's the verb form from which we derive Shekinah, and we saw his glory, Yekar. Now, as it turns out, these are the three major terms that the Targums use to allude to God. So John used these very same terms, but he did not leave them as abstract references to God and his majesty. Instead, for him, they describe the invasion of our earth by God himself. Further, there is clear evidence that Yochanan intended his readers to catch these allusions to God. For instance, Yochanan doesn't use the normal Greek word for dwell, the common word. Instead, he specifically picks a rare verb. And if you take a look at the insert under the sermon notes, you will see the word he chooses. And if you say it looks Greek to you, good, then you've identified it correctly, because it is Greek. It's the Greek word skenoho, which you will see there, which, as it turns out, contains the Greek equivalent of the very same consonants as the Hebrew and Aramaic word for God's presence or dwelling, Shekinah. And you can see that directly below. And thank you, Matt, for drawing the connections between the letters that are in fact connected. Yochanan makes it a point to stress this by choosing this very rare verb at this point. Now, the connection between creation and the Word is then reinforced in John chapter 1, verse 3, which reads, everything through him, in other words, everything through the Word, came into existence. Now look, if you're not familiar with them, let me familiarize you. These are words that were frequently on the lips of an observant Jew. In the first century, different blessings were said, as they are today, before eating. It depends on the class of food that you're eating. The most generic blessing, it's used when other specific blessings did not fit, or if you didn't know which blessing was appropriate, or you simply forgot what it was you're supposed to be using for a blessing here. In other words, the catch-all blessing, or the etc. blessing, if you would have it. You're familiar with it. It's Shakol Niyeh Vidvaro, which reads, everything came into existence by his word. Does that sound familiar? That's John 1, verse 3. So when Yochanan makes the connection between creation and the word, and when he spoke of the word as the instrument of creation, he was using terms that were very well known in his culture. Clearly, Yochanan knew that expressions like word, glory, or dwell, and came into existence by the word, or in the beginning, that these would provide a powerful common base for his audience, his very Jewish audience. These terms reinforced his claim that Yeshua is in fact deity become human. By the way, this understanding of the Messiah being around from the beginning is not an alien understanding at all to Judaism. The Midrash in a couple places speaks of his existence from before the beginning itself. So as you're putting it together at this stage, what you have here is some very Jewish concepts, references, and images of deity. Bereshit bara, or Ein Harkeh, as it is here. Memra, the word. Yekar, glory. Shekinah, God's actual presence as he dwelt on earth. Or Shakol Niyavid Varo. All of these things now converge, and then in effect, they explode to reinforce the stark reality, reality of how this text goes on, which says in Greek, Theos, Ein Hoth Logos. God was the Word. Now, let's connect all of this to tonight, into this week's Parsha and Haftarah. The readings for the third Shabbat of Shabbat, which is tonight, occurring so pointedly around Tu B'Shvat, they serve to underscore and reinforce Yochanan's startling message. Our Parsha tonight has to do with what? The giving of the Torah, when the text says, Varaber Elohim et kol hadvarim ha'eleh lemor. And God spoke all these words, and so he said. Emphasis on the word, memra. In other words, in this case, as you heard it read to you, God himself actually showed up on earth. And then the Haftarah text is the one that's found in our Amida, in the third paragraph, building on the concept of Yekar, when it reads, And I saw the Lord. He was sitting on a lofty throne, and the temple was filled with his glory, Yekar. The temple, you know, that's where the Shekinah actually resided. The text goes on to say, winged angels of fire sang, Holy, holy, holy is the Lord Almighty. The whole earth is filled with his glory, Yekar. Now that would be plenty if the Haftarah passages for tonight stopped there. But if you look at the calendar, there's another Haftarah passage connected with this. And with this you will be familiar as well. It's Isaiah 9, 5, and 6. Unto us a child is born, unto us a son is given. And his name, his titles, his characteristics will be this. Tele, Yoetz, El Gabor, Aviad, Sar Shalom. Don't misunderstand what's being said there. The titles he's given. Counselor of Wonders. God of Might. Father of Eternity. That's what this one, the child born, the son given, is called. Given that as a background for the readings, small wonder that Yochanan interwove these concepts as he spoke of Yeshua as Memra, word, as glory, Yekar, as Shekinah, God's actual presence on earth. You see, he knew the readings, he understood their implications, and he made the connections. And so he pointed them out for his readers as he connected one new year with the original new year of creation for us. Our response, well, it should be, wow, but it should also be new. New, as in the Yiddish term. Now that we've gone from Hebrew to Aramaic to Yiddish, just to confuse and conflate everything. So what? Well, before that call it the disappointment that took place back in the beginning in the garden, often called theologically the fall. Even before then, human beings longed for dramatic change. In Genesis, we see that Eve longed to be like God, to share in his very wisdom and goodness. Please understand this carefully. That longing was not the problem, since we see that in Yeshua, we're destined, as Shimon pointed out in his second letter, 2 Peter, we are destined to participate in the divine nature. And after that disappointment in the garden, that longing is now utterly frustrated in human beings. Let me suggest that this is one gracious reason God gave us the Torah, which we call a tree of life, most appropriate for this particular time of year, or as we've described it, Etz Chaim. He gave that to us to renew us and to show us that it truly is our destiny to live godly lives as outlined in that Torah and as pictured so beautifully in the psalm we read last week, which describes us as freshly planted trees. But history and our everyday experience show us that we fall far short of this goal. However, along comes some startling good news. And that's this. In Yeshua, God has done what is necessary for us to be changed, to enjoy the life we were created to enjoy, to participate in his nature, to know and experience divine wisdom, beauty, and love. The very things we have longed for all along, and for which we were created. Now, we often think of what's called the incarnation, the birth of Yeshua, merely as the warm-up to the real drama, which occurs at his death, because it's his death that gets us into heaven, as so frequently understood. As a clear illustration of this is this story of a teacher who was testing children in her Dublin Sunday school class to see if they understood this concept of getting into heaven. So she asked them, if I sold my house and my car, had a big garage sale, gave all my money to the church, would that get me into heaven? The children answered back in unison, no! If I cleaned the church every day, mowed the grounds, came to work day for the synagogue, and kept everything tidy, would that get me into heaven? And again, the resounding answer was no. So she tried this. If I gave sweets to all the children, would that get me into heaven? And again, they answered no. By now, she was just bursting with pride for them. They had gotten the point of her teaching. And so the teacher continued, then how can I get into heaven? One 6-year-old boy stood up and shouted, you've got to be bloody dead. Well, sort of close. Well, what many people have forgotten is that our liberation and transformation are rooted in the incarnation. In the incarnation, as our text tonight says, God stoops down to gather up humanity, actually becoming one of us, so that he may restore us to himself, to enable us to more fully attain the image of God with which we have been stamped. His participation in our humanity, then, enables us to participate in his divinity through being united to God through him. His incarnation actually repairs the defaced image of God that results from our failures. In other words, it is in fact what we know of in Judaism as the initial, the beginning stage, as well as the consummate tikkun olam, the repairing of the world, as God originally intended it to be. At the same time, the incarnation helps us quite literally to see what God is like, and it gives us a model to imitate. The closing text that was read from Yochanan's Gospel this evening. Yeshua, the unique one, made God known to us. And that's our task as well. We're to imitate it. It's difficult then to see the incarnation as anything other than life-affirming and in fact life-transforming. And it's a message that Yochanan clearly connected with today's Parsha and Haftarah. Passages which in turn are connected to Tu B'Shvat on our calendar, a holiday that pictures and celebrates the springing up of new life. So now, we more clearly know that God has made us in the image of Yeshua and has entered into our lives so that we may enter into his, thereby planting within us, so to speak, new life. We now know that we are enabled to love, enjoy, and serve him forever, which is what our expression was as we processed the Torah, Deuteronomy 10:12. What is it that the Lord wants from you? This is the core and foundation of the message that we have to share. And it's the resource as well that enables us to live the lives we were created to live. And it enables us to more fully experience the new life that was planted in us. As Yeshua, in a most timely fashion for this time or season of the year, says, and he says it to us, 15th chapter this time of Yochanan's Gospel. Yeshua says, I am the true vine, and my Father is the gardener. Every branch in me that does not bear fruit, trees, branches, fruit, you're getting the picture? Which Father? Every branch in me that does not bear fruit, most translations have, he takes away. Ouch. No, ouch. The text literally means lifts them up. Greater exposure to more sunlight. And every branch that bears fruit, he prunes it. Pruning isn't always fun, by the way. Well, it may be for the one doing the pruning, but not the, not the prunee. Is that what it is? Yeah. He prunes to bear even more fruit. He goes on to say, so abide, take firm root in me, and I in you. As the branch cannot bear fruit of itself unless it abides in the vine, so neither can you unless you abide in me. I am the vine, you are the branches, he repeats. The one who abides in me and I in them, that one bears much fruit. If you abide in me, he says, and my words abide in you. Remember, tree of life again? You will ask what you wish, and God will act on your behalf. If you keep my commandments, you will abide in my love. Yeah, it's just a few days ago we celebrated Tu B'Shvat. But may that too remind us of what's supposed to take root in our lives, to spring up in yet another new year, if you would have it, of fruitfulness and new life. It's your choice to abide, to take deep root, or not to abide. Make that choice, or at least renew that choice in the quiet of the next couple of minutes. Text for tonight, a picture that Tu B'Shvat reminds us of new life, and of Tikkun Olam, the repairing of things to the way in which they were. All set the stage for our response now. The Elaine, pages 102 to 107. As we anticipate the ultimate Tikkun Olam, when the world will be perfected under the rule of the Lord Almighty. Please join us in standing facing Jerusalem, which will be the center of that activity, as we respond on pages 102 to 107.
Adona Kol, Latin Gedula Yosem Bereshit, Shelo Asanu Goya Araso, Elo Samanu Kamishpachot Ha'adama, Shelo Samkakenu Kahem, Legor Aleinu Kechal Hamonam, Ve'anachnu Korim, Umishtakavim Umodim, Lifnei Melech Melchei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Shehu Notei Shamayim Ve'yoser Haaretz, Umoshav Yekaro B'Shamayim Mima'al, Ushkina Ruzo, Begave Meronim, Hu Eloheinu, Einod, Emet Malkeinu, Efes Ulato, Kakatu Torato, Vayadata Hayom, Vahashemota, El Bevavecha Ki Adonai, Hu Elohim, Bashamayim Mima'al, Ve'al Ha'aretz, Mitachat, Einod.
It is incumbent upon us to praise the Master of all, to exalt the Creator of the world, for He has made us distinct from the nations and unique among the families of the earth. Our destiny is not like theirs, our calling is our task. We bow down and acknowledge before the King of Kings that there is none like Him. For He stretched forth the heavens like a tent and established the earth. Truly there is none like our Lord and King. As the Torah says, you shall know this day and reflect in your heart that it is the Lord who is God in the heavens above, and on the earth beneath there is none else. We hope, O Lord our God, to soon behold your majestic glory, when all abominations shall be removed, and all false gods shall be at an end. Then shall the world be perfected under the rule of the Lord Almighty, and all mankind shall call upon your name. For to you every knee must bow, and every tongue declare that you are God. Reign over us soon and forever. May the kingdom of David's greater Son be established forever. For then shall the words be fulfilled. The Lord shall be king forever, and the Lord shall be king over all the earth. On that day the Lord shall be one, and his name one. Kakatu b'toratecha, Adonai imlo le'olam vayed. V'ne'emar, v'haya Adonai, l'melech ha'kol haaretz. Vayom ha'hu, yireh Adonai echad. Ushmo echad.
You may be seated, except for our good friend Gary, who takes over at this point. Don't overtake.